Thank you. I think I'll continue this subject of love today on this one. This one's called It's Better to Have Loved and Lost. I do not smile or laugh, though you may say, oh yes you have. Remembering fondly of those happier times, cooking us up a pan of biscuits, the aroma stirring us both. Then you will recognize that faraway sadness in my eyes, as cold as those leftovers on the kitchen counter. My words have no meaning, though you may have at one time felt their intention. Oh yeah, I meant every word I said. Nowadays, monotone and ineffective, sound waves dissipating through the leaves falling. Although the recordings in our minds may bridge what once was versed through another's words of song, our song. Spinning continuously in a circle, a chorus coming back around. I do not love, it left me vulnerable and hardened, and I've been stitching up that hole in my heart ever since, closing off those feelings that only I can revisit. And when the last stitch is sewed, maybe you can't access me, ever. But once in a while, when noticing blood seeping through the seams, I fervently rip those wounds open just to feel you again, keeping me constantly rethreading the needle to stop the flow of pain. I do not cry. What's the point? Holding back the tears? Dry eyes ask not why. Of what was lost that once was ours so dear? No goodbyes, so I do not cry. They say I walk without a swagger and talk with something else on my mind. The hands of time stopped ticking when our companionship parted ways. Unattached from this world, from love, from you, it's so apparent. A love song without feeling, a poem without meaning, a smile turned upside down, a heart without a beat. Dead to this world we shared, the obvious doesn't show the truth of the matter. On the inside, away from all of the hullabaloo, I wouldn't have it any other way. Wouldn't change a thing or exchange our love for nothing at all.
Brian Grosz.
Florian. Laughing my love life. Hey, you're crazy. Just like me. You take risks as if you're spitting in the myopic eye of Satan himself, all whilst pounding hard liquor, cackling as if riding side saddle on a broom made of John Wayne Gacy's wigs. As Weird Al gets mashed up with Iron Maiden, and joints are both rolled tight and flexible enough to fit ankles behind ears. You're crazy, just like me! No. No, you're not. You are just batshit. I thought you could be an anchor for my insanity, but it's not tied to a chain. The ship has sent out a distress Morse code call as it sinks into shark-infested waters, and the ocean is inexplicably aflame. One saved her menstrual blood so she could anoint spaces. Be careful of what you reach for in the fridge at 4 a.m. One would use my razor to shave her snatch, and my X-Acto knife to decorate her wrists. One kept a 400-pound pig in her bedroom. Every time I'd snore, he thought we were conversing. I named him Breakfast. One kept her socks on during sex, despite having her tits hanging out when she was at work. And one constantly wore turtlenecks so she could cover her mouth when she spoke. One made me enact rape fantasies she had. Is there a safe word for reluctant doms? One found Jesus and moved to Kenya to start a sanitary pad company. I'll grant her the altruism thing, but I still cringe at the cross. One left me to later marry a midget. It's cool. He's involved with a throne made of swords. One took bong rips like it was air first thing in the morning and still jittered frenetically while I shook with pre-sunrise DTs. And one always called me by my last name, as if I were a recruit in basic training, which was returned in kind because Soretta is a great thing to shout while working on your Pacino impression. Oh, Soretta! In here! One used to scream in the street, "I don't want to be that couple that fights on the sidewalk!" In the way that only a red-haired Greek-Italian lawyer can. Shortly before loosening my tooth with a right hook.
Wow.
Or the Tuesday night at 3 a.m. when I was asked by two beautiful women, one with a haircut just like mine, "Would you like to be in a Rebecca sandwich?" I know what we did, and I know how we did it. But it still boggles my mind how the three of us fell asleep on a twin-sized mattress on my dorm room floor. And I won't forget the one who said, "You eat pussy better than Jenna Jameson." "Oh, you like her porn too?" "No, she's literally gone down on me." Noted. And which brings me to the amateur porn actress I brought home one night. She dripped so much wax on her silicone breasts and my wall-to-wall carpeting that I lost my security deposit. And when driving her to her car, I took a route like a game of centipede, spinning the steering wheel like the trackball so she could never find my apartment. I am not perfect. I am the first to apologize. Love has given me shell shock that no heroic dose of Thorazine could cure. So laugh at my love life. I do. It's what makes me hope I may find love and laughter once again. And hopefully a crazy just like me.
RG Hook.
Part two. Although I did not finish the bottle of wine by myself, I came very close. Of course, none of our conversations stopped me from spending the rest of the weekend with him, platonically. This is how desperate I was for social interaction with people in my own age group. Oh, I could definitely visualize a Confederate flag hanging in this guy's house back in Philly. But I'd spent the last 60 days surrounded by chain-smoking tourists. The alternative was the not-so-subtle xenophobic geriatrics of the Dare County Literary Group that prided itself on a Bible or bayonet philosophy, and where most of the topics that they read out loud centered around how much they hated liberals, gays, transgenders, immigrants, the mentally ill, Muslims, millennials, Oprah, and basically the entire black community. The only normal, attractive writer was an 85-year-old Hemingway lookalike, author Joseph Tarot, who wrote fiction set on the Outer Banks. Joseph is what Hemingway would have looked like if Ernest had exercised and not been a drunk. We lunched several times until one day he said, "If only I were 10 years younger." I smiled and said, "Yes, and if only I were 10 years older." No, Joseph said, "You wouldn't need to be 10 years older. I would just need to be 10 years younger," reducing the age gap from 35 years to 25 years. Joseph was an overachiever. But back to Mr. Slavery wasn't so bad. When he left Kitty Hawk at the end of the weekend, I was glad to see him go, if only because I wasn't used to spending that much time with someone that many days in a row. During the weekend, we'd stayed away from all political and human rights violation topics. I wished him safe travels, but never returned his calls or texts or emails that followed because I assumed I would never see him again. Until he showed up at the back door of the beach house a month later. I was still in my pajamas, sipping coffee and typing away on my laptop when I heard the knock on the door. Both Gadita and I turned our heads to look at the door. The only way a person would be knocking was if they were approaching from the beach. I mouthed to my cat, fully expecting her to answer. She stood up on the backside top of the sofa to look out the window. I stood up behind her, knowing that from this angle we would be hidden from whoever was knocking. Oh my God, it was Mr. Philadelphia. What was his name again? And what the hell is he doing here? I crouched down so that I would not be visible through the window of the door and headed into the bathroom to look in the mirror. I had bed hair, and there was nothing to be fixed in the span of 3 seconds. I placed my palm up to my mouth and pushed out my breath to smell it. Coffee. Oh, to hell with it. He shouldn't even be here. I stood straight up and walked to the back door, cracking it open only a smidge. Hi, was all I said, without inviting him in. You are, he said, a hard person to get a hold of. I thought about that for a full second. Yes, I am. He continued, I called and left voicemails. Yes, you did. I sent emails and texts too. You sure did. This was kind of fun. What are you still doing here? He said. I thought you were leaving. As though somehow I was the one standing on his porch trying to interrogate him. I owed him zero explanation of any kind, and he was starting to annoy me. I changed my mind, I said quite flippantly. It wasn't hard for me to understand his frustration, but I never said we'd keep in touch, nor did I imply that we would. I also never asked him to call, or text, or email, and I definitely didn't ask him to stalk me online. I wasn't his mother, or his wife, or his girlfriend. I wasn't even a friend. We both happened to be bored out of our minds in a beautiful beach town one weekend an entire month before. And when I said I owed this first date to myself, I meant to myself. But I also owed it to my future to be highly selective, ultra-discriminating, and to keep the dating benchmark much higher. This guy's filter and his instincts were off, and I was on sabbatical and not taking on new coaching clients. When he continued to stand there, I said, I need to get back to my writing. Well, he said, I'm here for a couple of days, and he let the rest of the sentence drift off. Enjoy yourself, was all I said. The next 3 days, and with access to miles and miles of beach on either side, Mr. Philadelphia walked his dog back and forth along the stretch of beach directly in front of my house. And although I was twice as bored socially in November as I had been in October, there was no way I would be bullied into inviting him in. Gagita and I sat inside on the sofa, me shaking my head, and her licking her anus. I glanced at her as I whispered, let's not tell anyone about this.
No one should have to follow you though. That's just, future rules.
Don't follow me,
Don't follow you.
just stay upwind.
There you go. So I write for Medium.com, and this was one of my recent blogs called Dating Digitally. Wait, that sounds dirty. She wants a warrior lover with wild eyes, strong hands, and a poet's heart. Once again, I'm supposed to be writing a screenplay, and I'm blogging instead. Check out how I stumbled my way into a screenplay on Medium.com. The problem is, the screenplay is about dating in today's world at a certain age. It was the idea of the leader of my screenwriters group, Austin Writers Workshop, because hey, he's in a relationship, so what does he care? Technically, he just wanted me to write a movie that would appeal to our age group. And since I happen to be currently on one of my periodic dating sprees, it seemed like a good idea to write about that at the time. There are complications with writing about one's own experiences in a screenplay. You have to know and portray what the protagonist wants and what stands in the way of them getting it, and what happens if they do or do not get it. In real life, I only know that I want a relationship. The rest is a mystery. So the following is a smattering of my digital experiences with Ben, just to prime the pump for the screenplay I hope will come. So many double entendres in that sentence. An early encounter for me, Harmony, forgot my name after our dinner date when we went for coffee. He said, which one are you now? He was proud of not knowing anything about wine and thought our small town upbringing made us compatible because he was a country boy. Well, I'm a city girl who ran away from that small town a long time ago. I could teach a wine class, but he thought we were soulmates, even though he couldn't remember my name. Then there was, these are all true, by the way. Then there was the martial artist who owned his own dojo. I'm a martial artist. Check. He told me he was recovering from 2 recent heart attacks. No worries. He seemed healthy and strong. He then ordered all fried food. The financial planner from New York City was my dream come true. He lived in a renovated brownstone in Harlem. He was a financial advisor. He went to the opera and the symphony. He served on nonprofit boards. We talked often and had great rapport. He planned to visit me in Texas and arranged a visit. He didn't show up. He still hits me up occasionally on Facebook Messenger. A recent OkCupid date met me downtown at the Firehouse, a secret speakeasy bar. I ordered a margarita. They charged him $10 for it. I am now the punchline in his act, about a date who orders a $10 drink in a dive bar. He also thought that deserved a blowjob in the alley. I told him, yeah, this is Austin too, boy. I told him I was worth way more than that. And goodbye. I met a guy for drinks who is a musician and a Virgo. We Virgos generally really like each other. He talked about himself for 2 hours. Asked me no questions, and then texted me he didn't feel a romantic connection. Duh. There was the guy who asked me to meet at his house before going to dinner. I gave his name, address, and phone number to several friends in case I went missing. When I arrived, he had already cooked dinner instead of us going out, so we ate there. He showed me around. On a mantle were photos of his ex-wife and a lot of other women. The mantle was full. When I went to the bathroom and came out, he was in his bed waiting for me. I went home. Another man my age, a retired Air Force, Boeing engineer, divorced for 10 years, thought my being a sex-positive psychotherapist meant that I would be willing to be his guide in the bigger world of sex, which I learned meant mostly other women. No. And then there is my favorite, the breadcrumber. We met and had instant chemistry, fireworks, lightning strikes, the whole shebang. We dated for 6 months, with him driving the hour and a half both ways to see me every week. He told me he loved me. He would never let me come to his house. So, what I draw from this is no real conclusions about either men or online dating, except that men are visual creatures who scan photos and then reach out with nothing else to go on. When you're a writer of fictional characters, your characters often seem to take on lives of their own and lead you to write them into and out of certain situations. They may take you down surprising roads and express emotions and abilities you didn't foresee. It is my hope that my screenplay protagonist will light the way for me with her goals and what will happen if she does or does not achieve them. I can provide her with the obstacles in the form of amusing and unfortunate encounters. So once again, I'm going to return to IRL, the real world, to chance meetings, groups with like interests, and friends of friends. I am giving the finger to digital dating, at least for now, and until I write the damn screenplay.
All right, Emma Tucker.
First time here. So
Yay!
All right. So actually, background, I weirdly have a list of everybody I've ever kissed, and I am starting to write little notes about all of them and their stories and what they mean to me. So this is one. First dates typically exude awkward. No matter how smooth you claim to be, you'll still have that awkward pause when it comes to paying the check. Or maybe one person goes in for a hug goodbye, while the other felt some extra tension and tries for the kiss. With that being said, I love first dates. Maybe it's because I bask in awkward, like it's my natural habitat, or because I love getting to know new people. No matter, I've never had a first date where I wish to never be in the same room as that person again, with the exception of Harrison. Harrison was the son of the manager of Zephyrdin Gold, the Jewish catering company I worked for the summer after my freshman year. Therefore, my wish to never cross paths with him would not be granted. Put simply, my job with Zephyr and Gold was character building. When else in my suburban life would I have a coworker who was rumored to have murdered somebody, or another coworker who proposed to me in Spanish? After one job in Baltimore, I asked one of my coworkers to walk me to my car because it was dark and we were in the middle of Baltimore City. He started to tell me about how he grew up in the projects and that if somebody calls his name not the one I knew him as, I should run. From that day on, I paid the extra money to park closer to the venue. So, relative to the people I saw every day, Harrison impressed me. He was within about 5 years of my age, spoke English, was Jewish, and had pretty green eyes. After flirting at work and me thwarting his creepy invites to his house, we decided to go to a third-party location for dinner and a movie. The rest of the story is a long passage of incredibly odd conversations. Starting at dinner, Harrison decides to pull out a conversation starter he probably Googled before the date. He asks if you could build a Polly Pocket pony, what would it look like? Normal questions that he probably got from BuzzFeed or even created that survey himself. I mustered a response while he psychoanalyzed all of my choices. My decision for a pony to have a rainbow tail illustrates my innate desire for variety. Its purple hair shows my indulgence in feeling superior. If only the weirdness ended there. We left my car at the diner and he took his car to the movie theater. It turned out that the only film we could agree on watching actually premiered that night at midnight, forcing us to kill another 4 hours hanging around the parking lot, walking in circles around the closed mall. On our walk, Harrison broke the news to me that he planned to quit our catering job. Why, you may ask? His dad owned the company, not an easy task. Well, Harrison wanted to focus on his rap career. For some reason, a lot of teenage Jewish boys go through this phase, so it did not surprise me until he then rapped for me. He had no future, and if only the weirdness ended there. After a long walk discussing his plans after quitting the catering company, we sat down on the curb outside the theater, his arms hugging my legs. Whoops, I forgot to shave before this date. But apparently, he still rubbed his hands up and down my stubbly legs and complimented me on their softness. Either he has a high tolerance for stubble, or he couldn't think of anything better to say. Meanwhile, he also shared with me his special talent for seeing auras in past lives. A completely normal skill set. Would you put that on LinkedIn? Would someone endorse you for that? I still get endorsed for my C programming skills that I never had, so probably. I asked Harrison to read my past lives. Actually, I begged him because he truly did not want to do it since it took so much of his energy. However, by about halfway into the 4 hours waiting, I was scraping for interesting topics of conversation. So let me go through because I have a lot left. He looked up into the stars and said that my last life, I lived out in the woods as a lumberjack who had a lot of sex with women. I don't know how I met this woman. And then my most notable past life was Mary Magdalene. So yes, a prostitute, which is weird because I was a virgin and I didn't really know what he was getting at. So he said to me, we're going to get to know each other very well this summer. Anyway, after a terrible movie, let's see, we went back and finally I got to my car and he grabbed my hands and he said, before going on this date, my mom gave me some advice. A good first date has 3 things: good conversation, good food, and a little bit of sexual tension. I think we had all 3. We did not have any of those 3. Harrison then went in for the kill, of which I succumbed to a quick tap and shut the door.
I've never heard of it. Okay. And next up, Thom the World Poet.
Ode to Saint Valentine. A Apparently a martyred Christian saint from Roman times, now represented as an arrow-flinging Cupid child, seen among hallmark hearts and flowers in the sentimental chocolate section of the Hershey dollar store. We forget he was put to death. We forget that baby is almost naked. We salivate with chocolate taste and regress back to milk softness. Love, it seems, requires symbols. Here we have martyrdom and mock innocence. True love is not like this. It tastes the ice of winter years, and age does not define it. You allow yourself to love anything and anyone in serial progression. Some loves last lifetimes, the love of life itself and breathing. Love of being oneself as you change, and all others as they change too. Love is applied attention, not so much a fixation upon perfection, more a projection into the impossible to salvage and to rescue others or oneself by so doing it. It is both an act of will and a release of control. To be loved is a great thing, and it happens. To understand love takes more than songs and tears and smiles and poems. The emotional jukebox, waiting to the soundtrack of the movie of your life, when down play the B-side, affirm you're rising up. We all glow through shales and shallows, sink to the bottom of the ocean, run out buoyant oxygen and zen. When no bubble enthusiasm inflates, rely upon borrowed joys to inflate our lungs, to speech, to song, to shout, and run up to the surface like some marine specimen, Doppler lifeline, sine wave between joy and sorrow, calm again. Chance and choice. It is to love the unlovable, that caste accursed, that poor, that homeless, the angry fire, the violent husband, as much as the battered wife and raped child. This is the hardest rock. Easy to love pets, flowers, gardens, plants, cliches. Easier to adore the children of the future. Jails filled with unloved ones. It is not that they do not want to be loved, to be beloved is just they were not. Enough to cast them into shadows of forgetfulness. Hard to love the gun pointed, the fist slap. Harder to love the persistence of violence. Even bondage must have a safe word. Even masochism seeks release. Easy to love the soft kiss. Hard to love the sharp bite, the angry speech. Our only task is to love more than need.